Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? There was some news in the NFL, and I don't know necessarily that the Bears making, cutting a few players is always going to be newsworthy here. But one of the things that I say very often when we're here and we get to free agency is whenever a player hits free agency, generally every fan base goes to Twitter and says, man, should our team go after that guy? And my answer 100% of the time is going to be yes. That doesn't mean it's realistic or feasible to sign every player in free agency, but should you kick the tires? Should you ask? Yes. In the NFL, this is one thing I know unequivocally. You are getting better or you are getting worse. You are never staying the same. So even when you think you have a great player at a certain position, you should always be looking to say, is there someone in that position that's better where I can improve? Now, unless if you got Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, something like that, you're not looking for a quarterback. Everywhere else, you should be looking, always. And for the New Orleans Saints, I have said here and will continue to say that I think the offensive line is their most gigantic need this offseason. You are committing to Derek Carr. You've got your first two receivers with Olave and Shaheed, and you need help. The hope is Kamara drinks from the fountain of youth and rediscovers some of what made him so dynamic early in his career. Maybe Foster Moore or Juwan Johnson have a bounce back year. Maybe Jamal Williams is more productive next season. Maybe Kendre Miller stays healthy. There's a lot of what ifs there, okay? But what we know is you're committed to Derek Carr. You got to do what you can to make him more productive. You've addressed the coaching staff already on the offensive side. But you got to get better on the offensive line. Your offensive line was one of the worst in the NFL this year, by whatever metric. Pro Football Focus rated it as one of the bottom 10 offensive lines in the NFL. If you don't believe Pro Football Focus, you can look at rushing statistics. The Saints were one of the worst rushing teams in the NFL. Oddly, they were the second fewest sacks allowed this season, but some of that can be explained by how you run your offense, getting rid of the ball quickly, all that sort of stuff. But anyway, look at your offensive line. You need improvement. Ramczyk looks like he's going to be back, but he's been injured. Cesar Ruiz has been a bottom-tier starter as long as he's been in the league. Eric McCoy's very good at center when he's healthy. Andres Pete at left guard might be done in New Orleans. And James Hurst was never meant to be your starting left tackle. He was a swing rotational guy who's played left tackle out of necessity because you missed on Trevor Penning. Well, anytime I see a veteran offensive lineman hit free agency this offseason, I'm going to ask the question, should the Saints sign him? And that happened today. So the Bears have released two players. The Rappaport and others have it. The Bears have released veteran safety Eddie Jackson and offensive lineman Cody Whitehair. They had a combined salary number, he notes, of $32 million, so more cap space for Chicago. If you're wondering, Cody Whitehair has been a very reliable and productive player for the Chicago Bears. He's 31 years old. Cody Whitehair has played in 124 games with 118 starts since he was drafted in round 2 in 2016. So he was drafted the same year as Michael Thomas. He was drafted the same year, same round as Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas was a second-round pick in 2016. Cody Whitehair. So he's been in the league as long as Michael Thomas. He's played in 124 games with 118 starts for the Bears. He made a Pro Bowl back in 2018. So Cody Whitehair has been a good interior offensive lineman during his time with the Chicago Bears, and he was on the field for 70% of the team's offensive snaps in 2023. So he's been a good player, he's been a reliable player, and as Mike D would always say, the best ability is availability, and Cody Whitehair has been that. Okay, so why is he no longer in Chicago? His release saves the Bears $9.15 million against the cap. It's that simple. The Bears are kind of like the Saints in that they had to make cap-saving and cost-cutting moves. These are two veteran players that had a very high cap number, And so they're releasing Eddie Jackson and Cody Whitehair to save $30 million combined against the cap. Okay. So should the Saints be interested in Cody Whitehair? My answer, unequivocally, yes. Remember, if you are not exploring all possibilities to improve, you are negligent. I'm not telling you definitively that Cody Whitehair is the answer. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying the Saints have got to kick tires here. Look at what you have. And Cody Whitehair presumably would be a starting guard, okay? So let's hypothetically look at Andrus Peat. Andrus Peat's 30 years old, okay? He came into the league a year before Cody Whitehair did, but he's actually a year younger. Anyway, when you look at Andrus Peat, he would have been cut a year ago, but for the fact that he accepted a pay cut. And it was likely coming back after accepting a pay cut without a roster spot guaranteed. But because Trevor Penning was so bad, and remember, Peat was not a starter at the beginning of the year. Penning was your starting left tackle, and you had Hurst at guard. And Peat was on the bench. Well, ultimately, they moved Hurst to tackle, Peat to guard, and Penning went to the bench. So it's realistic that Andrus Peat could be gone in New Orleans. You designate him as a post-June 1st release, and you'd save about $9 million against the cap. So Peat could be gone. That's one spot that could be open. Eric McCoy's 28 years old. We've seen Whitehair play some center as well. McCoy is a guy that's 28 years old and is under contract through 2027. He's not going anywhere. As long as Eric McCoy is healthy, he's your starting center. Cesar Ruiz is interesting because Ruiz not only is your starting right guard, but he's your backup center. This is why it's important. This is why a guy like when Will Clapp was in New Orleans, it was important. Because if something happened to your starting center, Clapp was your backup at center or guard. The problem with New Orleans right now is that Cesar Ruiz, your starting right guard, is also your backup center. So, hypothetically, if something were to happen to Eric McCoy, Ruiz goes to center, and now you've got a backup center and a backup right guard. That's the problem. One injury affects two spots. So having a guy like Cody Whitehair potentially on your roster who could play guard and center kind of fills the void that Will Clapp did, where if something happened to McCoy, you wouldn't have to move Ruiz into that spot. Cody Whitehair could play center. He's a 31-year-old guy. He's a veteran. He's played guard and center. He could play either spot, put him in, bada bing, bada bang, bada boom, there you go. One of the biggest questions, obviously, for the New Orleans Saints offensive line, and not just the line, the entire team this year, is can Trevor Penning become a starter for you? I mean, it's almost like that's where the conversations with the offensive line have to start. And I'm not telling you that I am optimistic, but I am hopeful for this reason and a reason that I'm going to repeat a bunch. Penning came here. He was a mauler, very good inline blocker in a lot of zone schemes. He comes to New Orleans. He gets hurt in preseason, misses his whole rookie season essentially. He spends all of last offseason training to become your starting left tackle. That goes belly up. What if Penning spends this entire offseason training to become your starting left guard? Could that work? I am hopeful that could work. It's what you did with Andrus Peat. You drafted Andrus Peat to be a starting tackle. He was not good enough to play tackle in the NFL. Instead, he becomes a starter at guard for you for almost a decade. He was never an elite starter at guard, but he became a starting offensive lineman, and that's what you expect from first-round picks, is that they become starters. So could Trevor Penning, with this entire offseason committing himself to being your starting left guard, could he become that? That is my hope. And if that is the case, then you have a giant question about, well, then who plays left tackle? Do you retain James Hurst? Do you draft a starting left tackle, which is what I would like to see them do? I would love to see the Saints at 14 draft their starting left tackle in a draft that is so deep at quarterback and receiver. You are going to see really good offensive linemen and edge rushers who are normally not there when the Saints would pick be there, because you could see 5 quarterbacks come off the board before the Saints pick. You could. You could see Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix. You could see all 5 of them come off the board before the Saints pick. If that happens, And you know guys like Neighbors and Adunze and Marvin Harrison are all going to go that high, and Joe Alt and Fashanu. Well, you're going to be sitting there at 14 with an amazing player on your board that you can pick. So there might be a franchise left tackle available to you at 14. If that's the case, I would love to see that happen. I would love to see the Saints draft a left tackle, have Trevor Penning work out at left guard, and there you go. And then maybe a guy like Cody Whitehair fills the role that Max Garcia played this year. Max Garcia is a veteran guy that you brought in. He bounced around the league. He played in Denver. He played in Arizona. He played a ton of football throughout his career. He came in as a rotational guy. And inevitably, and you did this year, have injuries across your offensive line. Max Garcia was a plug-and-play guy at a lot of different spots and ended up being a key guy for you. Well, you could bring in Cody Whitehair, who's got more experience than Max Garcia and can play center, as your rotational interior offensive lineman. Look, if you're going to keep 7 offensive linemen, or maybe 8 on your active roster, you'd have your 5 starters, and then you need a swing tackle and a swing interior guy, and then maybe one more, but probably 7. What I'm saying is Cody Whitehair is a guy that could be that swing interior guy that can play guard or any of the guard spots or center, any of the 3 interior spots. Or if Penning doesn't work out, you've got a veteran dude that you could plug in and can be your starting left guard for you. So I'm not telling you that this is absolutely the answer. I'm just telling you, you better go kick the tires here and on everyone like this guy, because it could be the answer to solidifying your biggest question offensively. You better figure out how to get your running game going and how to give your quarterback time to get the ball to his dynamic playmakers. And maybe this is a guy that can help you do it. Now, there's 2 questions that are obvious. Number one is, how much would Cody Whitehair cost? And I don't know the answer to that. You know, this is a guy who has been in the league for a long time and, has presumably made good money during his time there in Chicago. And what would it cost? You know, his most recent contract was a 5-year, $51 million deal. What is he worth? What is someone willing to pay Cody Whitehair at this point in his career? The other part of it is, at 31 years old, he'll be 32 before the end of next season. Is that a guy that's looking to go play for a contender? He's been in Chicago his whole career. He's never won a thing. So is there an opportunity to go fill a rotational role on a contender instead of in New Orleans, maybe? I'm not saying he's the guy. I'm just saying if you're the Saints and you don't go kick the tires, that's negligent. And there's going to be guys like that pop up in a free agency all throughout this offseason that the Saints need to do their due diligence and go solidify that offensive line, because, man, they were bad, really bad at times this year. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.